I built my dream coffee space, and it didn't cost me nearly as much as you might think, and you can do it cheaper than me by avoiding some of my silly expenditures. In this video, I'll tell you the best and worst things I got so you can kit out your perfect coffee bar. Of course, the most important part is your table. This is going to decide what your space feels like and the space you have to use. And it's going to depend heavily on how much space you have in the room, or you might not even be able to decide this because it's just your kitchen counter. The main thing is that you just need enough space for three main components: the espresso machine, the grinder, and your tamping area. Each is going to take up about a third of a normal sized desk space. With my table, I wanted it to be big enough to have multiple machines, and it needed space for this jug rinser at the front, so mine is about double the size I actually needed at 140 by 210 centimeters. A lot of other content creators have a thinner bench behind and one in front so they can stand behind their bench, but you don't need that unless you're filming stuff. After a lot of searching and agonizing over this, I ended up getting this oak wooden kitchen island from Natural Wood Floor for about £215 plus £60 shipping. They don't actually sell this table anymore, which is a bit worrying if I'm honest. What's wrong with it? Well, so far mine has been just great. It has two big shelves underneath the top, and I figured that the one directly under could be for coffee tools and the bottom one could be for camera and cleaning gear. In practice though, if I'm honest, I just dump stuff everywhere and tidy it up every time I shoot a video. Because of that, I think this is one of the things that I would change and get a table with at least two drawers at the top for all the small things like tampers, baskets, brushes, and espresso glasses. But I'm still pretty happy with this because the wood is gorgeous. Think about then what tools you use. A lot of them can sit on top of your table, but some of them are bigger or not used every day, so you're going to need some storage. You got to think about cups, jugs, and other things that also take up a lot of space. I have a bookshelf over here on the other side of the room that has my cups in it, but again, I would try and make this more integrated if I changed things, so I could easily reach out for a cup without separating it so your workflow is nicer. Of course, one of the big things was getting the upgrade that every home espresso / latte art lover wants: a jug rinser. I got this bad boy a few months ago, and honestly, I love it and hate it. First barrier was that it required me to get a flow jet, because I'm nowhere near the plumbing in this room. This part was really expensive, much more than I thought when I first started, and for the flow jet, pipes, Brita filter, and then the jug rinser from Rhino, as well as all the additional little fittings that were quite confusing to figure out, to be honest, I paid, I think, around £350 for everything. I also paid my good friend Dan, the builder, to come and help me cut a hole in the table and install everything. And of course, by help me, obviously I mean he did most of the work, and I helped and filmed it. Do I regret the expense? No, not really, but I would say that it's definitely not necessary. And if you're not close to plumbing, that does drive the cost of the jug rinser up by a lot and might not be worth it for you. On top of the cost of all that, you also need two water jugs to hold the water for the flow jet to pull from, and a waste jug for where the liquids are going down the pipe. This one needs to be emptied every day, or at least every other day, or it starts to smell funky. So it's a bit of a pain, and sometimes I put a cloth over the rinser to remind me not to use it, just so I don't have to clean it up. But the whole flow jet setup is very cool, and I'm excited to plumb in a machine as soon as I get one that lets me do that. Next, you have to think about the backdrop. This might not be an option for you if you're living in a rented space and don't have the ability to put stuff up on the walls, but at least you can put up some posters or coffee memorabilia to mark out the space. Obviously, I film all my videos here. I wanted it to be instantly recognizable as my coffee space, and for me personally to really enjoy it. I ended up going with these lovely wood panels from the Wood Veneer Hub because I thought they looked great and weren't too expensive. I paid just over £400 for the 4 panels that I needed and cut down the final one so it'd stretch over the door. And again, Dan helped me install them and cut them down, and honestly, I would have ballsed it up without him. But obviously, these alone aren't enough to make the backdrop work. I wanted to have a corner angle, and the bookshelf here was a bit in the way, so I bought a blind to cover the whole thing up. I picked light grey because I thought it would be a neutral enough colour to play with the lights I wanted to project over it, and it can make a clean backdrop for the thumbnails for my videos, which I generally spend a ton of time doing. I do keep some coffee stuff behind the blinds in the bookshelf that I don't always want to have in shots, or things I want to protect, like my Yuchi ceramics cups that are probably my most prized possessions. I thought about putting shelves on the back here to put those cups on, but ended up not finding anything that felt like it fit. And I preferred to keep the uniformity of this vertical stripes for better photography for things like thumbnail images on YouTube. And don't forget when looking at your backdrop that one of the biggest things here is lighting. You might have a backdrop just like mine, but I figured out early on after doing a few lackluster looking videos that I needed to light this scene better. So just make sure that your coffee bar has either great sunlight in the morning or some really nice lighting to fill the space when you need it. For example, I really liked Chris's space from back in the day, that's Chris with an X, with the dangling Edison bulbs, and I bought one of them for my space in Japan when I couldn't do anything with the walls. When I redid my space, I thought a lot about background lighting and ended up enhancing the orange and blue look that I'd kind of stumbled onto when I was in Japan. I mean, just look at the difference between this with just the natural light and a standard wall light. So my main light here is a small rig 120W with a decent sized softbox and a grid over it to direct the light. It's on a boom arm stand that lets me have the light either on my face like it is now, or hover it over something when I'm taking a video of it. Then I put LED accent lights behind the table that project onto the wall. I think these look really cool, especially when I don't have the main lights on. I already learned the lesson that just sticking an LED strip behind the table doesn't look great, so I recommend that if you use LED strips, always get diffuser bars and get LEDs that are closer together if you want the lights to be more even. I used to have this warped LED tube light on my table before I did up the space, but I couldn't find a way to incorporate it that didn't feel forced, so now it's my bedside lamp. I got it from John Lewis for about 40 quid. When I'm filming, I use this Amran T2C light to add blue to the background, which not only looks great, but helps to separate me from the background. Then I have this small Godox TL30 that I set to an orange hue and put behind something on my bench to add the orange. Both of these tube lights are excellent and I use them all the time, especially for shooting B-roll. I often find that tube lights are better to make coffee stuff look good because it makes this highlight line, which I think looks a lot better than a kind of spot you'd get with round lights. And of course, I put all my lights on smart plugs so I can just tell Google Home to turn on the studio and it turns on all the switches. Turn on the studio.
Alright, turning 4 things on.
Nice. You don't need to have anywhere near as much lighting as I do, because obviously I'm filming this for videos, but I really think that this relatively inexpensive thing can really elevate your space. LEDs are the best for this, especially if you can control the temperature of the light to make it more yellow or more white, or with RGBs to change the color. They also don't flicker when you're taking shots with your camera or phone, and they can be switched off or on automatically or with voice commands. You might have noticed that I had a plant in the corner there for a bit. It showed up in a few videos and in my Instagram stories in the background, and it was okay, but it spoiled the minimalistic aesthetic for my thumbnail photos. With the plant in it, it just didn't look as clean, so now that plant lives on the windowsill where it can get more sun and live its best life. So when it comes to machines, I have the Odyssey Argos on my bench right now. It's a pretty little machine and I'll be doing a review of it very soon. I ordered this one in March 2024 and didn't get it until this January, so I'll let you know if it was worth the wait. But it's a very small machine and it looks diddy here in this space. My hope is that this year I'll have the chance to get a bigger machine on my bench that can be plumbed in. It's also going to round out the space nicely as I transition to more educational content rather than just constantly reviewing machines. I did a video recently that explains why it's pretty impossible for YouTube coffee creators to make money doing reviews, so check that one out after you finish watching this one. I've had a lot of recommendations on which machine to get as the end game one, but I wonder which one you think would look better. My top lists are a Kees van der Westen Spiritello, a Slayer Steam Single, or a Synesso ES1. Not that I can afford any of them, but which one do you think I should get for this space? Tell me in the comments. Your espresso machine choice is really about what functions you want, what look you want, and how much your budget is. And also, if you don't have much space, that's going to dominate your decision as well, as it isn't really optional. And there are a lot of makers now building machines that don't take up as much space, even dual boilers like the Profitec Move, that was really quite compact for a dual boiler when I finally saw it in person at the Madrid Coffee Fest this year. Then there are some machines that make a space look better if they're bigger, like the Nuri L type I had on my bench before. It was a really big presence in this room. Personally, I like a big machine, but I'm obviously not limited by space. I bet I could fit a 3 group in here if I wanted to, or at least a 2 group. I test a lot of grinders too, so they mostly don't stay on here for long, but when I'm not testing something new, I usually revert to the Mazda Philos, the Vario VS6, or the Turin DF83V, depending on what kinds of shots I'm pulling. I like all of those grinders for different reasons, and like I said, no grinder gets to live on here for very long. And then what tools have I been using? I have a lot of espresso prep tools, but there are a few residents of the bench. finish. This mat from MHW3 Bomber replaced a previous mat from the same company. I love a nice wooden tamping mat like this one, and it's perfect with my setup because I mostly use the dosing funnel, a WDT, and a tamp, and nothing much else. I have tried some of those needle distribution tools like the SE Pro, and also things like blind shakers too. I think they're fine for people who want to remove variables from their routine or in a cafe environment where cutting down prep time is everything. If you just want to do 2 pumps with a needler tool and then a little leveling with your finger, I think you can get pretty consistent results. But as I've said in previous videos, I don't really use blind shakers that much because of the workflow. I feel like it just tends to be more work than a quick WDT, and not much better extraction if you use proper technique. That means starting at the bottom, rotating around, and slowly lifting up to make sure you've moved the whole bed around and not just made the top look neat. The tamp I'm using most of the time right now is the U-Series Impact Tamper. It removes a lot of the guesswork by having a set pressure when the tamp clicks and leveling the whole tamper so you don't have to worry about it not being flat like you might do with other tamps. I also highly recommend that you get a hook under your table if you have one like mine, and then put a towel on it. I use this dry towel all the time for cleaning out my portafilter and all kinds of other things. I also got a standing knockbox. I know you can get small ones for your table, but I wanted to take this off the table and have some extra space, as well as not having to think about cleaning it out every 5 or 6 shots. I usually have a milky drink every day unless I have a really special coffee that I want as pure espresso, so milk steaming is really important for me, and I have a whole bunch of latte art jugs. I use them for different designs, so the main difference you'll see between them is the spout shape. Round spouts are better for wide designs, and sharp spouts I tend to use for free pours, so that's things like the Pegasus or the Seahorse design I've been trying to get perfect for a little too long now. I was a little disappointed with the Evo jug from Barista Swag, as their Ultra Sharp 2 was probably my favourite for a long time. This Dario Piba one is really nice for free pours, and the iCape and MHW3 Bomber ones with the sharp spout and this one with the longer lead are really perfect for doing hollow hearts, which I've been working on for a while now as well. And of course, something that basically never leaves my bench is my book, the Brew Ledger, which I made for espresso lovers like me. This helps me keep track of my dial-in settings and get better tasting espresso much faster. I keep all my settings like dose, grind, temperature, and my brew results in here, so I can always redial in to a perfect espresso. If you want to pick one up, I'll leave a link in the description to that and everything that I've talked about in this video as well. Sales of the book are what is helping me to continue the channel, so if you get one, you're not only supporting me to create educational videos here, but also you get a really great espresso journal that has a lot of very positive reviews. If you'd like to know more about my thoughts on gear for shooting these videos, I thought it was a little off topic, so it's on my Substack, which you can subscribe to for free, and there's a link below to that too. Thanks so much for watching, you wonderfully overcaffeinated people, and I'll see you on the next one.